Alright everyone, it's time for what you've all been waiting for. Another Nausicaa video.
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on!
As some of you may know, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is the film that helped kick off Studio Ghibli, and one of my favorite films from Hayao Miyazaki. It's based off Miyazaki's manga of the same name, which went on for another 10 years after the film's initial release. It planted the seeds for the types of stories that Miyazaki would want to tell, and after the manga's completion in 1994, almost every film of his had some semblance of the thematic elements that was present in Nausicaa. The English dub for the movie is probably my favorite dub for any Ghibli movie. Not only did the cast do a great job of translating the tones and personalities of every character, but I was really sold on Alison Lohman's performance as Nausicaa. She really captured the essence of Nausicaa and portrayed what she went through throughout the film in excellent fashion. But what some people may not know is, this wasn't the first attempt at dubbing the movie. The dub that most people are familiar with today was done by Disney in 2005 and is the version that is most accessible today. Although there's a dub of the film that lives in infamy and is much more elusive. Very shortly after Studio Ghibli's formation, they had already thought of breaking into the US market. Production company Manson International would end up being the ones in charge of localizing Nausicaa for the US, and New World Pictures was left to distribute it. In June of 1985, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind would be released in the US under the title Warriors of the Wind. This version of the film was heavily altered by Manson International and would prompt Miyazaki to take on a strict no edits policy for future foreign releases of his films, most notably for Princess Mononoke's release under Miramax. But what did Manson International do to the film? What upset Miyazaki so much? To find out, I decided to watch Warriors of the Wind. And oh boy, it's something.
There, in the toxic jungle. It's an angry Gorgon!
The first thing you may notice that was changed is the title of the film itself, Warriors of the Wind. Which is like, okay sure. It's the least offensive change out of everything, and maybe I would have been able to look past it if it weren't followed by so many other changes. Perhaps they changed the title because they thought Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind was too long and would turn people away from the film, or maybe it simply sounded too boring. The thing that bothers me most about this title change is that it's a bit misleading. I assume the warriors that the title's referring to are the people of the Valley of the Wind, which in my opinion aren't really warrior-like. They mostly keep to themselves in order to maintain their lifestyle and stay out of the affairs of other nations. Sure, they fight towards the end of the film, but that's to reclaim their home and kick out their occupiers. If anything, the Tolmekians and Pegites are more like warriors, since they are actively at war with each other. Moving past the title, here's a look at the poster that came out with the film.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
These are not characters of the film. This one right here, at the very least, is in the film, just not a character. They took one of the giant warriors, shrunk it down, and smacked it onto the poster of the movie. The other three, on the other hand, are completely new. We have what looks to be Paul Atreides from Dune, Megatron, and Hercules on his Pegasus with a gun. I don't know, man. I assume they put them on there to make the movie more attractive to action-adventure fans, but the thing I find most strange is, look at where they put Nausicaa. The main character of the film, the person who this movie is about, is shoved to the back of this composition. She should have been the focus, front and center of this poster, in place of these guys who don't even exist. It's basic advertising. I get it, it was the 80s, right before the Disney Renaissance. It's most likely that they thought that having a young female lead on this kind of poster would struggle to sell the movie. But if they were going to go this route, they could have at least chosen characters from this movie. You could have picked Lord Yupa, Prince Abel, Princess Kushana, even Kurotoa, instead of these random-ass copyright-free characters. But anyways, let's look at the movie itself.
Princess Sandra.
If you have a keen eye, you may notice an inconsistency between the runtimes of Nausicaa and Warriors of the Wind. The original cut of Nausicaa clocks in at about 117 minutes, or about 1 hour and 57 minutes. During the localization process, Manson International made the bold decision to shave off 23 minutes and 36 seconds off of the film, making it 1 hour 34 minutes. That is about 20% of this film that they just omitted. I know it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you count all of the scenes they took out, it comes down to a whopping 13 scenes, 11 if you don't count the opening and ending sequences. As a result, we lose a lot of the dynamics between Nausicaa and the other characters, especially the people of the Valley of the Wind. We miss out on her caring nature for these people and why she is so beloved by them. Although the aspect that suffers the most is seeing the connection that Nausicaa has with the insects of this world. They straight up delete the subplot of the film. In the Warriors of the Wind cut, they treat Nausicaa's interactions with the insects as if she is some sort of tamer of beasts. It plays down the importance of her character because Nausicaa's relationship with the insects, especially with the is much deeper than that. She cares for them and communicates with them on a different level. She is the only one who could fill her role in the original story, while in the Warriors of the Wind, it could have been anyone. The way they handle Kushana also bothers me. Miyazaki is known for not making his antagonists plain villains, with the exception of Muska from Castle in the Sky. That dude was diabolical. In Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, Kushana does sort of lean towards the bad end of the spectrum, but she did believe that what she was doing was for the best of humanity. She had grown tired of her family's politics back home, tried to establish a new nation of her own, and wanted to fight back against the Sea of Decay with this new nation of hers. Her methods to getting to that point were a bit extreme, but she saw it as something necessary. This made her relationship with Nausicaa interesting because Kushana didn't hate Nausicaa. Both of them, in a way, ultimately wanted the same thing, to preserve the survival of humanity. While Kushana pursued her goals at the expense of others, Nausicaa tried to overcome her obstacles through more peaceful means, which piqued the interest of Kushana. Throughout the film, you can see that deep down, Kushana wants Nausicaa to be successful, but due to her own experiences, doesn't really believe that she will be. There's a dichotomy between these two characters. Honestly, I could be talking out of my hat here about this, but this is how I view Kushana's character. In Warriors of the Wind though, all of that is stripped away from Kushana. With all of her cut scenes, there's not really a relationship with Nausicaa anymore. You barely even see her interact with Kurotowa, her right-hand man. Kushana just becomes another generic movie villain. There's even a line where she admits she is evil, which I believe goes against her whole character. It's tragic what they did to her. One of the more annoying alterations of Warriors of the Wind are all the name changes made to just about every character. Nausicaa becomes Sandra, Abel becomes Milo, Kushana becomes Celine or Selena or something like that. Mito becomes Axel, and the become Gorgons. I don't even know if they say Kurotowa's name, so I have no idea if they changed his. The only one they kept the same is Lord Yupa. I don't know why they decided his name was fine, but if you were going to change everyone's name, you might as well commit. On top of that, they would say his name differently every other time they said it, which was kind of distracting. In the wide scope of things, the name changes don't bother me too much as it doesn't directly affect the story, but they could have at least been consistent with it.
You man, get some rope. Axel, fix the hook.
Right. Hey!
Don't move. I'm in command here. I don't think you're as evil as you pretend to be, Queen Selena. Haha, but I am.
The last thing I wanted to talk about is something that I don't think could have been helped. The voice acting. I'm not sure how good English dubbing was for anime back in the 1980s, but for this film in particular, it's not so great. I don't want to straight up say that it's horrendous, because I think it's sort of watchable. There are just some moments that are pretty bad. As a whole, the best word I could use to describe the voice acting is awkward. Apparently the cast was not told much about the film's plot prior to recording, so that might have been a factor if true. Either way, I feel like the cast failed to capture how the characters are truly meant to be, especially Nausicaa. Nausicaa is more nonchalant about everything going on and is less passionate about her cause. I also don't think that her voice actress suits her all that well, through no fault of her own. She just sounds much older than Nausicaa actually is, on top of the awkwardness. But what I think further impedes the voice acting of Warriors of the Wind is the dialogue. The dialogue is so clunky since they cut out so much of the film. They try to make sense of things that no longer have context. Sometimes they completely change lines or even add lines where there wasn't originally. When they're not doing that, the dialogue is very hand-holdy about what's going on and talks down to the audience. It's as if they expected only children to watch this. Then it occurred to me. After watching Warriors of the Wind, I understood what their goal was. They wanted to sell this film solely as a children's movie. In my opinion, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind isn't necessarily a children's movie, but rather a movie that children could watch. The art and character designs are comparable to other animated films for children, but the themes of Nausicaa are a bit deeper than what kids may be used to. As they wanted to sell the film to children, Manson International most likely believed that it would be too confusing or difficult to follow, but you don't know that. Children can be pretty perceptive about these kinds of things. Not always, but they can. And even if they don't entirely understand the film, I still think it's very much enjoyable. Hell, I first watched Nausicaa when I was 18 and I'll admit it, I didn't entirely get it. Yet, I still ended up loving it. I love coming back to this film every now and then because I feel like I understand just a little more with every watch. This did not have to be dumbed down for kids. It would have just challenged them to think about the themes and messages that are presented to them. If anything, the way Nausicaa tackles its themes is done in a way that is digestible to children. What Manson International did to this film takes away what the film was trying to say and makes it feel disjointed. But you know, this is just how I feel about it. There might be people out there who actually grew up with Warriors of the Wind and feel fondly towards it. If so, I feel sorry for them. If you haven't seen Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, hopefully Warriors of the Wind is not your first experience watching this movie. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard, since it has been virtually deleted from existence. You'd have to have some crazy luck to come across this first without meaning to. If you have seen Nausicaa and are curious about Warriors of the Wind, watch at your own discretion, I guess. Can't say I didn't warn you. Okay, bye.